Good afternoon, all. CamelbackTrading.org coming to you this Friday afternoon, March 19th. And we are looking at all the market profiles of the ETFs that we follow here on Window Trader. We have a lot to go over. Sit back. Hopefully you enjoy these. I'm going to go over all the charts of all three indices. We had an interesting day today. Again, it's another day when sellers could have really pushed and taken control only to give up some. However, the buyers had a chance to do even more damage. We had a chance for a trend day up in SPY, it failed. We had a chance for a trend day up in Russell, that failed. They took back a bunch of singles from yesterday. We'll go over everything in a bit. Remember, SPY was ex-dividend, so there was a lot of different connotations between SPY and ES today. Had a good day today. Called the market well today. So I'm very happy with that. We'll start with the Russell. So Russell, as you can see, didn't gap lower, but it did take out yesterday's low. Remember, they had a price probe. They had 3 sets of single prints. But then after that, B attempted lower, and then that was really it. They went up. They took the price probe out. They went trend, filled the single prints in L. They were holding trend. They almost filled all the single prints in K. They did not. So they still have single prints in K and the single prints from J from yesterday with the trend day down. And then they gave up the trend day up later in the day. I actually took one trade in Russell. I took it a long in K against J's low. I'm like, well, let's see if we hold it. If we do, that could be our afternoon pullback. It did turn out to be that. However, I was getting nothing out of this trade. As you can see, K and L did nothing. I finally took it off, made pennies on it, and it cost me a nice short in SPY, which I'll go over when we go back to SPY. That was the only trade I took in the Russell today. Triple Qs, they didn't even take out yesterday's low until later in A and B. But again, and by the way, Russell's value was lower all day. Triple Qs had overlap in the lower value, and in fact, I'm not sure, they might have even ended unchanged on the day. The one thing they did do, which was impressive, is they filled the single prints from yesterday. But they attempted to get back into the upper distribution from yesterday, but really failed and got kicked out of it rather quickly. And they end up 10 wide, pretty much a P shape. I guess, they were more of a P shape than either Russell or we were. I can't even call this a P shape. But they did go out 11 wide. Now, one other thing about IWM, they had raised POC up to G's low. So when I took that long in K and we filled the singles and we couldn't take out J's low, I'm like, okay, for sure, we're going to go back up here and possibly get 9 wide. We never got back up there till M, so very interesting. All right, so triple Qs. SPY and ES. Obviously, we were a lot different than ES. So all I can really show you is SPY on the profile. But intraday, they really acted the same a lot. We opened with a gap in SPY, which I call a dividend gap. They pushed lower. We took out some reference points to the downside. Our reference points are far and wide again to the downside. We pushed low in A and B, and that was it. We took out our overnight low, yet we took out the initial balance high, just like ES did. We attempted to go trend. We had single prints that finally got filled in J, and then M wiped everything out. We continued to make new highs. Look at this wide POC I had in SPY. But every time they made a new high, it was like a dog with his collar on and running into the electric. They ran into the electric fence. Each new high you could have faded. Each and every one you could have faded after E period. E period got a good push. After that, you got nothing for your troubles. And in fact, I told the room in M, I don't think we're going to probe. And in fact, I wouldn't doubt, I think we have better odds of going down to half back. We did it. Again, it's not about taking the trade. I didn't even take the trade. I had a good day. I had a very good week. I'm like, unless something really interests me here in M, I'm not going to do it. With the expiration, I'm like, if they're trying to pin 390, I wouldn't doubt they try to screw everybody over both ways to push it up like they did early and then to rip it down possibly to half back and then close it at 390. Well, actually, they didn't even close it at 390 as they pushed lower, and they ended up closing at 389.48. I see us close it at right now. But it did pretty much what I thought it would do. And that's a form of reading the tape, not reading order flow, not reading the DOM. Just for doing this for so long, you can see things in the market and how you think it's going to react. And I think that's a big advantage I have, and obviously the people in my room have, because I passed that on to them. As far as my trades, I took a long in A period when we got down and held the 20-day moving average. Got right to it, got below it. Actually got below it, but got below it quick. Came right back through it. I had 386 calls, and that worked out for a nice trade. I wasn't going to hold it. I wanted to see the first time there. Well, ripped through it, got it back above it, pushed up. I got out of it, but it was a good trade. Then I took a short in B period when we were one-time framing down. I didn't take it right away, but it came back up. I'm like, well, we're one-time framing down. Let's see what happens at the overnight low again. So 390 puts, I did that. That trade worked. Then I went long the MES and D period. We got above the opening. I'm like, I think there's a good chance to pop the top and see what we get. They had already done it in Russell. They had already done it in Qs. Well, that wasn't working. So it started coming back down. I only had 10 of them. I had 10 of the MES. So what I did was, and this is another form of experience and reading the tape, I'm like, I think the odds now are going to be good. We were 3 wide. I'm saying I thought the odds were good to go back to 4 for 4 wide. I said, even though we're one-time framing up, it wasn't going to be a trade I was married to, but once we got back below the opening, I bought 100 of the 391 puts to get 4 wide. And we got it, and it turned out to be a beautiful trade. That was my best trade of the day by far. And I actually was holding the MES. It came back up. When it finally came back up, I took them off for a small loss because we weren't getting much out of it. And then I didn't do anything. Then it got very, very methodical for me, these grinds. So E popped the top. I was like, we're not getting much here. I actually shorted MES at H's high, which turned out to be a nice trade. Came down. I took it off when we got down to around F's low. And I also took a short on the puts when we took out G's low. I thought we would fill the singles. We actually didn't. I made money on some. The rest went up. Actually took them off. I actually lost small on that trade on the puts because it didn't get the flush I was expecting. Now, the only other trade I did, I said, was that long in K in Russell, which kept me out of a short because I had the long in K, and by the time I got out of it, I finally got out of it in L period, and by the time I got back to SPY had already popped the top and come back in a bit, and I wanted the short against the overnight really wide POC here, and I didn't get it. And that was it. And the only other thing I did was I told the room, I said, look, I think a lot of people are expecting possibly to pop this top here, GIJKL. I said, I'm not really looking for that. And if we do, I'm not really looking for it to run. And when we couldn't get it, we were already one-time framing down, I was like, I can see us getting to half back. And that's exactly what we did. So good day, good week overall. All right. Destinations for Monday. There's a lot of upside destinations now. We have the 9 wide from today. Eyes low at 390.74. So let's talk about destinations far and wide apart. So they have us closing at 389.48. Just want to keep checking because they changed that, usually up to 420. So our first destination on the upside is over $1 away. Then we don't have anything to today's high of 391.57. And then we have all the other destinations, 391.97 the price probe, and then you should have all the other ones written down. If not, please look at this morning's video. For the downside, we closed at 389.48. My first downside destination is today's low, which is a weekly low now of 387.15. So our first destination is back below the 20-day moving average. Below that, we don't have anything to 385.31, which is the daily low, another daily low, which, by the way, would put us below the 50-day moving average. And then we don't have anything until last week's low of 381.42 and then 379.92, afternoon pullback low for March 5th. So, again, we have wide destinations on both sides of the aisle. I said yesterday, remember in I period? I said I wouldn't be surprised if we hold this 398 level. This is when we were trading at 396. I said, and get down to 385, 390. Well, look what we did yesterday afternoon, and look what we did today. We got right smack in the middle of it, 387.15. I'm very happy and proud the way I see and call a market. And I don't say these things after the fact. It's prior to it. And I'm putting my money where my mouth is. Now, let's go to all the charts. First, we'll go to the Russell. We'll go top down, okay? So monthly in the Russell, very healthy. 6 months, one time framing up so far, right? Very healthy. Weekly. Weekly, here's the one thing that kind of bothers me in the weekly. We went from balance last week. I'm sorry. We went to balance. We came at about, let me rephrase that. We had been in balance. We came out of it to the downside, one time framing down 3 weeks. Last week put us back in balance. Now this week actually took out last week's high, but barely, by 38 cents. And we kind of failed miserably up there. That's the thing. Is that a look above and fail the all-time high? Well, since we got there, we pulled off pretty good. We are still one-time framing up, though, for 2 weeks. So you can call the weekly either still balance or balance to up, whatever you want. It's all subjective. But that's one thing to keep an eye on. If we can't go back and get that high, well, then it's going to be interesting if we do take out this week's low. And then on the daily, I'm calling it down. So the monthly's up, the weekly is balanced or balanced to up, and the daily is down right now. It did close above the 20, but until we take out, if we take out today's high, I'll be back in balance. But for now, the daily is down in the Russell. Triple Qs. Monthly is balanced, right? We took out last month. We took out a bunch of monthly lows. We're in a 4-month balance. 4-month balance. This month is the low of it. Last month's is the high of it. So we are purely in balance in the monthly. Weekly. Balance. Now here's the thing that bothers me about the weekly and the triple Qs. We had an inside week last week. We came out of an inside week to the upside to put us back into balance, right? We were one-time framing down for 3 weeks, even though that was balanced last week. It never took out the previous time frame's high. We came out of an inside week to the upside. Pretty damn good, by over $4, only to fail and close back inside of last week's range and get nothing more out of it. So just like we might have looked above and failed on the Russell on the weekly, the question is, does this inside week up failing on the Qs put a damper on what they did? Balance in the weekly. And then on the daily, down. So little trend here. Russell's down in the daily. Triple Qs are down in the daily. And guess what? So are we. So now let's go to SPY and ES. Now I know there's a big disconnect from today. Monthly is healthy, one-time framing up for 5 months. Healthy. Weekly. Again, you can call it, we came into balance last week when we stopped the one-time framing down. Now, the thing in the SPY, which I'm kind of, even though we closed inside last week's range, we did take out last week's high, though, by a lot more than ES did. Right? We took it out by just under $3. So again, do you want to call this balance to up? Do you want to call it up? I actually am calling it up. I'm going to give the buyers their due since it wasn't just a look above. And since it wasn't an inside week up that failed. So I'm calling the weekly up, one time framing up for 2 weeks. But the daily is just the same as Russell and Q's, down. We got below the 20, right back up above it. The 50 and 20 are on a collision course at some point. So the bottom line is this. In the short term, the market is down. That's the daily. So the bears have had so many opportunities over this past year, since last March, to get something going and try to force this market down. They failed again today, for my money's worth. They just, they had a chance this morning. So it's going to be interesting to see if that's all they wanted. If we take out the daily highs on the Russell, Q's, and SPY and put the daily back in balance, well then, for my money's worth, there's a good chance we can start possibly grinding back. Remember, SPY's all-time high is in the overnight. So is this all they wanted to do? 385, 390 level, and now they're going to start grinding up? Well, we'll see on Monday. First things first, we have to take out today's high. If the sellers show up and take out today's lows in all three of these indices, well, then things can get pretty interesting again. Because remember, if we take out today's low, the weekly is firmly back in balance in the SPY. And then we'll see if we could start pushing to the previous week's low. I hope you had a great day trading. Have a great weekend. Come check us out at camelbacktrading.org. Enjoy your evening, and we'll speak prior to the opening on Monday.